under our sacrum. So that same supported bridge position. With the knees bent, feet on the mat. Feeling that sacrum touch the block. So not lifting the low back off the block, but really feeling that connection of the back of the pelvis into the block. Chin is slightly toward the throat. The shoulder blades are on the ground. Let's bring the hands right to the front of the hips or the front of the pelvis and start picking up one foot at a time into that hip flexion march, where one knee comes over the hip. But let's make sure that the pelvis itself isn't wiggling side to side or forward and back. We're really holding the low back and the pelvis still. This movement is coming from one hip at a time. Let's pause with that right foot up, knee over hip, so right hip is flexed. Bring your finger right toward that hip crease where the thigh meets the hip. And notice what it feels like as you externally rotate the hip, your heel swivels over to the left, and then internally rotate, heel swivels over toward the right. Try that a couple more times. So we're moving the top of that right thigh bone, rotating in and out. We'll hold in our figure four, crossing the right ankle over the left knee or thigh. If it feels good, right hand can even come to that right thigh and just gently push away. Keep feeling your sacrum on the block and the back of your ribs on the ground. Breathing into the ribs, front, side, and back. Release that right foot back down to the ground. Hold that sacrum steady, alternate, picking up one foot at a time again. So that hip flexion march, we're moving from the hips, not in the low back. So nothing's changing about the block. Pause when your left foot is up, knee is over the hip, so that left hip is in flexion. Hands right to those hip creases as we externally and internally rotate this left hip. Moving the left thigh bone, rolling it in toward the body and then away from the body. Pause in that external rotation, cross it over. Maybe left hand comes to the left thigh. Feel your two pelvic points at the front of the pelvis draw in toward each other, holding the pelvic bowl still as we stretch the outer left hip. We're going to move that left foot, bring it back to the ground. Let's push into the feet to lift the hips off the block and just move it aside. Now the block is going to come between the knees or the thighs for bridge. So whatever width or thickness of the block feels good, you can always lower down first and then lift back up, meeting in low bridge. So we're really using the glutes here. They're nice and firm. That's what's extending the hips up. But let's stay low enough that our back ribs are on the ground and we can keep that neutral neck, chin slightly toward the throat. Keep pushing into the feet, especially those big toes. Lightly hugging the inner thighs into the block. Right palm comes up toward the ceiling. Let's take the left fingers and pull the right fingers back into a wrist extension stretch. Keep hugging in on the block. Strong legs, strong glutes. Switch hands, left palm up, pull back into that wrist extension. Keep those two pelvic points drawing in. Hands will come back to the front of the hips. Take an inhale. As you exhale, feel those two pelvic points draw in. Start by lowering down your upper or middle back. Lowering one vertebra at a time. Really try to slow that descent all the way until the sacrum right above the tailbone is back on the ground. Block will stay between the knees for our core work. Interlace your hands behind your head. Elbows come in. Let's take a big breath in to the sides of the rib cage. Exhale, hug the block between the thighs. Lift off the shoulder blade. Let's feel those two pelvic points draw in toward each other. Feel your front ribs coming in toward each other a little bit more. Inhale to lower. Exhale, hug the block. Lift up. Tiny lift, just enough that you get off the shoulder blades. Lean your head back into your hands so you're not pulling on the neck. Inhale to lower. Exhale, hug the block. Lift up. Feel those front ribs drawing in. Feel your belly button try to pull down toward the ground. We're gonna hold this feeling, hugging the block. Right leg will extend in line with that left knee. Internally rotate that right hip. So your right thigh bone is rotating in toward the block. And then externally rotate that right thigh away from the block. Bring it back to neutral. Step the right foot down. Inhale and lower. Exhale, lift up. Lean your head back. Feel the belly button pull down. Left leg extends, hugging the block. Let's internally rotate that left thigh so the thigh bone rotates in toward the block. Rotate it away from the block, externally rotate. Back to neutral, step it down, inhale and lower. One more time, each side. Exhale, lift up. Feel your whole front body zipper up, including the ribs. Right leg extends, hugging in on the block. Internally rotate the right thigh bone in toward the block. Externally rotate, so the thigh bone rotates away from the block. Stay off the shoulder blades, back to neutral. Step that right foot down, inhale and lower. Exhale, hug the block, draw the pelvic points in, lift off the shoulder blades, lean your head back into your hands. Left leg extends, hugging in on the block. Rotate or roll that left thigh in toward the block. And then roll the left thigh away from the block. Back to neutral, stay off the shoulder blades, lower the left foot, inhale and lower down. Release that. We're going to take the block under the skull this time. So a little bit of a neck release. Whatever setting feels best, maybe the lowest setting to start, and just bring it right under the skull. Slightly draw your chin down, so we've got that neutral neck, and take a little bit of a rock side to side to whatever amount feels good as you rock. You might feel tight here. This is really nice. It's a great thing to do when you've got headaches or neck pain. Just a little rock on the block, a little bit of massage there. Now, head is going to stay on the block as we bend the knees and turn our bodies onto our right side. So coming into a side lying position, both arms reach out to the side, and the head is just being supported by the block. Left arm will open up and back. So turning through the ribs, this is our thoracic rotation, and then unwind, left arm comes back up and over. Inhale to open that left arm up and back. So we don't want to force this rotation, especially with the arm. The arm is not what's turning us, it's just the ribs. And then bring it back. Let's do that one more time. Left arm comes up and open. Feel the ribs turn, but not the low back. And then exhale it back over. Let's roll through center and onto the left side now for that left side lying position. Head is being supported by the block. Arms reach over toward the left. Inhale, open the right arm up and back. You can even bend the right elbow here if that feels better on the front of the shoulder than a straight arm. Exhale it up and over. Inhale it up and back. Turning through the ribs, but not in the lower back. Exhale it over one more time. Inhale it up and back. Exhale it over. Let's lift up into a seated position. Now, we won't be here for too long. If you want to sit on your block, sometimes that's really nice to give the hips a little bit more space in the seated position so we don't have to have the hips in such a flexed position. Check in, do we have our ears over the shoulders, shoulders over the ribs, ribs over the pelvis? Hands come forward, so that's our wrist extension. Like when we do this stretch, spread those fingers, push the heels of your hands forward. Look at your non-dominant hands, the one you don't write with, but we're gonna do both hands at once. Lower both pinkies down and try to just move the pinkies. Then just move the fourth finger, just the middle finger, index finger, and when you get to the thumbs, cross them in front to make a fist and pull your knuckles back in towards your body. That's wrist flexion. Might feel like a big pull or stretch at the front of the wrist. And then circle a couple times both ways. We're gonna do that one more time, coming to that wrist extension. Palms forward, spread the fingers. Look at your non-dominant hand, but we'll move both. Start at the pinkies, lower just the pinkies. Make your way down, one finger at a time. When you get to the thumbs, they cross in front and we pull the knuckles back. Wrist flexion, take a breath in and out. Circle both ways. We're heading into quadruped to do a little hip mobility assessment. So we're going to use the block on our sacrum now. So the block is going to come onto the low back, the back of the pelvis, as we come onto hands and knees. Now you could always be on fists, or you could be on palms, but let's lift the front of the throat, soften the chest down without bending the elbows. These blocks have plastic on them, so they're slipping all over the place. So in our quadruped, we're going to do some hip circles. All you're going to do is hover that right knee off the ground and circle the hip. Try to circle both ways without losing that block. So what we're doing here is we're isolating the right hip joint, meaning we're not moving in the low back or the pelvis. So it's just a tiny movement both ways, and then lower that right knee down. Recheck your triple S, and we'll do it with the left side. So you've got our neutral spine, shoulders over the wrist, lift the belly up toward the block, cover the left knee, circle that left hip. Hold straight and strong in the arms. Might be the tiniest little circles. And then lower the left knee down, remove the block. We'll take cat-cow. If you've got two blocks, you're welcome to put the blocks under both hands as you cat-cow to give yourself a little bit more space here. So however you're cat-cowing, let's inhale and arch the back spinal extension. Exhale, round the back spinal flexion. Get as much movement as you can in both directions. Heading into a downward dog. Again, hands are going to come to the blocks if you've got two. We'll tuck the toes, lift the hips up, keep the weight in the hands and the arms. As you bend the knees, walk your feet in to shorten the stance of your down dog. Big bend in the knees, heels can be way lifted off the ground. We're going to do some shoulder shrugs. Push the blocks away or push the ground away. Shoulder blades lift up. And glide those shoulder blades down the back. Your head's going to come a little bit closer to the ground. So we push the ground away. Our head moves away from the ground. And the shoulder blades slide down the back as the head comes closer to the ground. So we're just doing this shoulder shrug. Moving those shoulder blades up and down. Pushing the floor away. This is great to free up some upper back tension. Shoulder blades. Especially if you get nice and sticky right in between those shoulder blades. Let's have a huge bend in the knees. Walk your hands back toward the feet for a happy squat. We're going to have a block with us at the back of the mat. So bring it with you. Push down into the feet and we'll rise up. Checking in with that triple S. Ears over the shoulders, over the pelvis. Block is going to come right in front of us and we're going to palm that block. Stagger walk, so our right foot will step forward. You can have as much bend in the knees as you need to keep the tailbone reaching down. Now with the block at the chest, turn just the chest and the ribs, maybe 1 inch to the right. Don't let the pelvis turn. And then unwind. Step your left foot forward into that stagger walk or staggered stance. Check the pelvis. Turn just where the block is. So just the chest, just the ribs to the left. Unwind. Step that right foot forward 2 more times. Stagger walk, rotate the thoracic spine, so the mid and upper back. Bring it back. Step the left foot forward. Soften the knees as much as needed. Rotate the block to the left. Unwind. Step it forward. We're going to take this block now and put it between the ankles. So it could be whatever width feels good. And we'll just stay at the top of the mat. We're going to do some heel raises here. So hug the block between the ankles, push into the big toes, lift the heels, and then control that lower down. Lift the heels, control that lower, hugging in on the block. Good, keep going. This is a great way to train ankle mobility since without the block, a lot of us roll out onto the pinky toes. So to get that really strong, stable ankle, we want to have that feeling of hugging the inner ankles in a little bit so that the ankles are lifting right up, kind of over the middle of the foot and not out to the pinky toe side. So we'll be coming back to this. You can remove the block for now, but keep it near you. And we'll come to the top of the mat, reaching the arms forward and up. Lift the shoulder blades up, but the tailbone down. Exhale, hinge, long spine by bending the knees. Hands are going to come to blocks in quadruped. Doing a nice little swivel here, let your knees swivel to the right, your feet swivel over toward the left, and then catch the back. So that rounding of the back, spinal flexion. Push the ground away, let those shoulder blades really spread away from the spine. And then switch, knees to the left, feet to the right, round the back. As much as you can, we're lifting the ribs up, spreading the shoulder blades. One more time, each side, knees swivel to the right, feet to the left, round the back. Nice stretch for the side body. Knees swivel left, feet to the right, round the back. So these are our quadruped swivels. And then unwind. Let's step our right foot forward. Low lunge. Left knee is down, coming into our 90-90. We're going to have a block with us. Firm that left glute. Really picture that triple S behind you. The block will come behind the skull. Feel your head lean back into the block. So we're not having the head forward. We're really leaning the skull back to find that neutral neck. You can open the elbows as much as it feels good for the chest. And just like we did with the block at the chest, let's turn the ribs maybe an inch to the right, but not turn the low back. And then unwind. Rotate to the right. Just turning the ribs. Bring it back. Rotate to the right. Bring it back. One more time, left glute on. Rotate the ribs to the right. Keep leaning your head back into the block. And then unwind. Block will stay in the left hand. Bring it either lowest, medium, highest setting right under that left shoulder. Bring the right hand behind the skull. Turn the chest to the right without wiggling that left shoulder. So really hold that shoulder in place. You can stay here or you can reach that right arm up, but don't worry about it going all the way straight. And the right arm isn't twisting you, just the chest. Right hand comes down, we're heading to quadruped. Block on the sacrum again. So using the block to assess that hip mobility, let's balance the block right here. Walk the knees in for your quadruped. Make sure the ears don't drop below the shoulders. Right leg extends back. Lift the belly up toward the block. Float the toes off the ground. Keep it low. We're going to bend the right knee and pull it in toward the torso, flexing the hip without rounding the back. Extend it back out without dropping the belly down. Hip extension. Pull it in, flex the right hip. Extend it back. Hold the chest the same if you can. Hold the shoulder blades the same. One more time. Pull it in to flex it. Strong arms. Extend it back out. Draw those pelvic points in. Lower the right knee to quadruped. Remove the block. We'll do that on the other side. Our left foot steps through. Right knee slides in for our 90-90 lunge. Lift up, ears over the shoulders, over the ribs, over the pelvis. Firm this right glute. Lock behind the skull. Now really feel your head just lean back into the block. Open the elbows as much as it feels good, but hold the ribs in so they're not popping forward. Exhale, rotate the chest to the left. Firm that right glute as you rotate. Unwind. Exhale, turn the chest, maybe an inch or two to the left. Firm that right glute. Unwind. Rotate left, keep drawing those pelvic points in. Unwind, one more time. Rotate left, lift the pubic bone up toward the belly as you rotate. Bring it back. Block stays in the right hand for that modified twisted crescent. Shoulder over the wrist. Left hand behind the skull. Keep the back long. Turn the chest to the left. Hold that right shoulder really strong. You can stay here. You can reach that left arm up, but the arm doesn't twist you more than you already are. Breathe into the ribs. Hands come down for quadruped. Your choice, you can take down dog, you can do those shoulder shrugs if that feels good. You could take cat-cow, or you could shift the hips back and take a child's pose if that feels good. Wherever you end up, let's feel that 360 breath into the ribs. Walking it forward into our bent knee forward fold. Pushing down into the feet. Get that block ready as you rise up. Block between the ankles. So we're going to do this each time. Whatever width feels good, hugging the inner ankles in. Let's push into those big toes, lift and lower with control. So even here, if you need to have some softness in the knees, in order to not block the knees out by tipping the pelvis forward, allow the knees to bend as much as you need, keeping that gentle squeeze in of the inner ankle. Remove the block. Both hands come down for quadruped, hinging at the hips. Let's do those swivels. You can go a little bit quicker this time, maybe just a little quick swivel, right and left. Whatever feels good here. Mobilizing the back, getting into those tissues at the lower back, connecting to the side body, maybe all the way up toward the shoulder and the armpits. Right foot will step through the hands for a low lunge. We're going to put the block under the left knee. It's a little bit of a supported lunge here, so those left toes are going to tuck under. And we'll lift up here. So this kind of supported knee, low lunge, checking that the pelvis is not tipping forward. Lean your skull back just like we did on the block. Right hand comes to the back of the pelvis, right at the sacrum. Left arm comes up. Lift everything on your left side. So you're imagining you could lift that left thigh off the block, that left knee off the block by getting this lift into the pelvis, that left shoulder's lifting, left fingertips. Keep that reach up, but maybe we side bend a little bit more to the right. Keep the ribs in. Don't let the side bend tip your pelvis forward. So hold everything still. We're just getting a bigger pull on that left side. Lift up, stay in your lunge. Let's roll the shoulders back. A little freedom for the shoulders and the scapula as we still stretch the front of the left hip. Hands are going to come down for quadruped. We'll lift off the block on that left knee. Now right hand will come onto a block. If you have two, you could always have one at the higher setting for the head to tap as we do this thoracic rotation. The right shoulder over the right wrist, right hand on the block, left arm reaches out to the left. Push down into that right hand to turn the chest left, rotating the ribs. As you exhale, thread that left arm under any amount. So if you have another block for the head, it's something to just reach toward as you rotate. Push into that right hand. Turn the ribs to the left without forcing the rotation. Exhale, thread it under. Maybe the head taps toward a block. Push into that left or right hand, rotate left. Hold the low back still. Exhale, thread it under, rotating the ribs the other way. And hands come down for quadruped. Left foot steps forward. Right knee slides in, but the right knee comes onto the block. Right toes are tucked, lifting up. Check in. Would that broom touch our triple S? Give that right glute almost a little squeeze here, nice and active. Left hand to the back of the pelvis, right arm up. Lift the right shoulder blade up. Lift the whole right side of your rib cage up. That right thigh bone is lifting up into the pelvis. Now keep that lift as we side bend to the left. Hold the front ribs in, so don't let the back arch. Our tailbone is still reaching down toward the ground. Lift back up, release the arms. Let's roll one shoulder back at a time, but keep that right glute nice and firm. Hands come down for quadruped. The block will come away from that right knee. Now the block's gonna come under the left hand for that thoracic rotation. Right arm reaches out to the side. Push down into that left hand. Hold the left shoulder steady as you turn the ribs around it. Exhale, thread the right arm under any amount. Maybe the head taps toward the block. Push into that left hand. Turn the chest to the right. Exhale, thread it under. One more time, push into that left hand and rotate. Exhale, thread it under. Hands come down. You're welcome to use both blocks here. Option to shift it back for some kind of child's pose. You can stay in cat-cow or do those swivels. You can tuck the toes, take down dog. If you're in down dog, feel free to pedal out the feet to stretch the calves. You can do those same shoulder shrugs. Let's walk it forward into our bent knee forward fold. Pushing down into the feet, grab your block between the ankles and rise up. Check in with that triple S, hugging the inner ankles into the block. Push into the big toes, lift and lower the heels. Soften the knees as much as you need to keep that pelvis upright and not tipping forward. Really push down into the big toes, lowering with control. So you don't want to be slamming the heels down. Control those ankles on the way up and on the way down. Remove the block, but we're going to keep one of them with us as we step the right foot back into a high lunge. Right knee is soft. We've got that neutral pelvis, so we're not tipping forward. Both arms reach forward, but the block will be in the right hand. Feel that triple S and make sure we're not arching the back. Hold those ribs in. Block is in the right hand. Reach it up. Turn the ribs to the right as we circle the block all the way around. Good, so it's going to stay in this right hand. We're just opening the arm as we turn the chest and the ribs slightly to the right. But it's not a big rotation because we're not turning the pelvis with it. So that right pelvic point is staying facing forward. Any rotation is happening above the pelvis in the rib cage. That block is going to come between both hands now as we turn to the right, heels in, toes out for our squat. So hips are externally rotated. Keep that pelvis neutral. Palm the block and reach it overhead. And really squeeze those hands in so we're nice and active in the arms. Hold the ribs in. Bend your elbows like you're trying to touch your thumbs towards your shoulder blades. Hug those elbows in as tight as you can and then reach the block back up. So we're getting into the triceps here with the help of squeezing the hands into the block. But let's make sure that as we do this, it's not the whole spine moving. Nothing's moving except the arms. So all this mobility is coming from the shoulders and the upper back. It's not by popping the ribs or arching the low back. So it's maybe a really small amount of movement, but it might be a big feeling. Good, stay here, but straighten the legs and parallel your feet. You can take them even wider. We're gonna have the block behind us at the sacrum, and you're just gonna grab the block and try to pull the block apart like you're ripping it in two. And what that does is it opens the tissues at the front of the shoulder and chest. But again, we wanna hold those ribs in. So we're gonna side lunge like that. Holding that feeling of the chest open, sit back into the hips. So we're doing one side at a time. Right hip crease moves back and the left hip crease. But we're doing this with our neutral spine. So remember the feeling of the head leaning back into the block. Can we get that same feeling here, lifting the front of the throat out so that we're not dropping the head down and losing that neutral spine? Rise up, turn it back to the front of the mat. Now we're gonna step our left foot back. Same thing on the other side. High lunge, soften that left knee. Both arms forward, block is in that left hand. Now hold the pelvis still, left arm up. As you circle it, let the chest turn a little bit to the left and bring it all the way around. So now we're working this left side, left shoulder mobility, thoracic rotation to the left, but those pelvic points are still drawing in. Our pubic bone is lifting up toward the belly. We might even be feeling a little active stretch at the front of the left hip here. Turn to your left. We're coming to that squat. Heels in, toes out any amount. Palm the block overhead. Now, active arms as straight as you can. So the movement isn't, we're keeping those ribs in and just pulling the thumbs back. Keep the elbows in snug and then arms up. So even if your starting position is further forward, that's fine. It might not be available to get the arms overhead without popping the ribs. So wherever your shoulders are able to get this movement, we're still activating the triceps, even if the arms aren't up overhead. Keep squeezing the hands into the block for more muscle engagement. Stay facing the side of the mat, but parallel the feet. This time we are going to do block behind the skull. So block behind the head. Feel your head lean back into the block and keep that connection as you side lunge. So getting into that hip mobility, but using the block here as a little feedback for the cervical spine, so the neck. We want to feel that lift up into the block so that we don't lower the head down, which rounds the back. So keep that nice neutral. Come back up. We'll do a little stretch for our feet with the block. You could be holding onto a wall or a piece of furniture. Let's put our right foot on the block. All you're going to do is try to stretch that right heel down. Getting into the Achilles, into the back of the ankle, maybe a little bit of the calf. So Jess, you could be forward. That's going to be a bigger pull. You could be closer. That's going to be smaller. So wherever you want to be that feels good, the back of the ankle, do your thing, and then switch. Left foot comes to the block. So you could be further forward. That's going to be a bigger stretch. You could have that right foot further back. That's going to be a little bit less pull. So wherever it feels good to be. Good, and then remove that left foot, shake it out a little bit. We're going to do one more thing with the block before we end. We get to lay down though. So we're going to lie down. Either put the block horizontally under the shoulder blades or vertically between the shoulder blades. Whatever feels good, we're going to lie down and support the head with the hands, just like we would in our core work. So clasp the elbows, have the elbows in pretty tight here, and then just to lean back over the block to whatever degree feels good. We don't want it to be painful, but it might feel like a stretch. Maybe feeling like a pull in certain muscles, and just letting yourself move around here. It might be side to side, but really good. Might be a little bit of rotation both ways. You could do a little rounding as if you're doing a crunch or a sit up here. Use the block in whatever way feels good to free up the upper back, the middle of the back, the chest, the shoulders. Go ahead and roll off the block, and we'll make our way into a seated position. Again, you can sit on the block if that makes this position a little bit more comfortable. Check your triple S as you close your eyes. Breathing into the ribs, front, side, and back. And as you exhale completely, send one grateful thought out to the universe.